Welcome back. And now we're joined by Kim Trujillo from here in Bernalillo County, Albuquerque. She also has her family story of living with somebody who is dealing with the disease of addiction to fentanyl. And we're here to hear about her and how she works through this with her and her family today. So thank you so much for being with us, Kim, and for being vulnerable and willing to share your story with us. Please tell us a little bit about your loved one. What were they like? What makes you smile about them? What are they like?
What makes me smile is just what he was as a child, was just a very caring, thoughtful, brilliant child. I'm talking smart, just like off the charts.
Yes.
And so I had really high hopes for him as far as, academically. I was thinking, oh, this kid's going to Harvard. His dad's from the Boston area, so I had these dreams that were what is now unrealistic, because as smart as he was as a very young, as a toddler, he was showing signs of very oppositional behavior. And as in elementary school, he was diagnosed with ADHD. And then as he got into middle school, he started dabbling with drugs. So it's been a tough life for him. It's been a really tough life for his family. Yes. And that's me, that's his sister, his grandparents, the whole extended family has really suffered as a result of him, one, having psychiatric issues, and then two, a drug addiction. Yeah. And that all started, like I said, in middle school. It was marijuana, then it was, I don't even honestly know all the drugs that he's used. I know that when he's been hospitalized in recent years, they'll test him and there's meth, opioids. They don't even test for the fentanyl, or my understanding is it's hard to detect because there's an opioid component to it. So I just know from talking to him or hearing conversations that revolve him that there is fentanyl in his system and in his life, and it definitely gets in the way of him excelling.
Yes.
So I'm going on and on. There's a lot to his story.
Of course.
So you can stop me or.
Well, and that's just it, right? They're complicated, just like life is nuanced and intricate. And we hear that a lot, actually, about folks that might have a mental health diagnosis or might have mental health needs, and yet they're not being met. And so it often does turn to them self-medicating. Often is the way we hear talk about it, right? And has that been some of what discussions around your son?
Exactly. And I think even now that I'm working in a nonprofit dealing with people experiencing homelessness, we're hearing a lot of that there is that dual diagnosis, that yes, they have a mental illness, but they also have an addiction. And it is strongly believed that it is self-medicating.
Yes.
A lot of people just need an escape from their pain or from their histories, from the trauma. So my son has experienced more trauma on top of, there was some abuse from his father when he was young. And, I will say that he was a tough kid to discipline.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anyone deserves abuse, but there was frustration of how do you discipline a child.
Yeah, we're not given those tools, right, as parents.
Well, the tools I was given was timeout. We did a lot of timeout. It really was not, I wouldn't say it was very efficacious. So like I say, he's had a tough life.
Yes.
And I think anyone that has someone in their family that's gone down that road, it's really tough on the family.
And so you've really been on this journey and could recognize even for quite some time. What would you wish for others that might be going on this journey, or for other parents that might be in the same place or beginning in the same place? What do you wish?
I wish that that there were more services for
Yeah.
for people like my son, and I will say that he's now getting services. He's 27 years old. He's finally getting services. So I had to fight for those.
Yes.
And sadly, a lot of people that you see on the streets of Albuquerque don't have someone to fight for them.
Yes.
They're out there, and if they're panhandling, it's to stay alive, sadly. It's to feed that addiction.
Yes.
And I'm very fortunate that my son, you know, we've found different services in Albuquerque, including Heading Home, that we're able to get him housing. They're able to get him medical care. They were able to get him a diagnosis. That's a big thing with people with addictions, is just trying to get them a diagnosis. So when you take someone to Caseman Hospital, they give them a drug test. And when they determine, yeah, there's meth and there's fentanyl in their system, a lot of times they're just released out of the hospital the same day.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it took days to get that person there. In my son's case, it will take caseworkers, it takes the police department. The psychiatrist has to be on board to do these certificates of evaluation, and it's frustrating when
Yes.
when you know, my son is traumatized. Cops have to take him in handcuffs to the hospital, and when the hospital says, yeah, there's meth in his system, and here's a place where you can go to get cleaned up, that's not treating the person.
No.
It's just further traumatizing them. So we've dealt with that, but I will say at this point, as long as my son is getting an injection for his schizophrenia, the rest is somewhat manageable.
Yes.
We can't stop him from going out every night to buy the blue pill. I do hear him doing that, and I do question if he's prostituting himself to get those pills.
Yes.
And my guess is he probably has, because I don't give him money to
get it.
purchase it.
Yeah.
How I manage the money situation is I send him groceries, I send him clothes, I send him toilet paper, whatever he
Things he
needs,
needs.
so that he doesn't have cash to feed the addiction.
Oh, and it's so hard. Thank you so much for sharing, because it explains both the desperation that folks are in to get some kind of thing, and that this is a disease. That's why I call it the disease of addiction, and that we have to treat it like that, with the healthcare lens that's ongoing and compassionate and has care surrounding it. Thank you
Right.
so much.
Sure.
And your struggle speaks to so many of the families that are struggling, and we can only imagine for the folks that don't have somebody by their side. So what would you say to other families you've talked about a little bit who are dealing with the same issues, and and if there's anything else that you wish you had early on to know, speaking to families?
As I said earlier, I wish there was more
Services.
services for the individual, but there also needs to be services for the people that
Thank
support
you.
those people.
Yes.
And I guess the lesson in all this is that the caregivers for these people need to
Yes.
take care of themselves,
Yes.
because it can bring you down. And if you want to share some of your story, when you have someone that is mentally ill or is abusing drugs, it affects everyone in the family. It's a family disease.
Yes, yeah. Like I told you earlier, my father was a great father, taught me how to fish, took me camping every weekend in the summer, taught me how to fix the air conditioner. He was also an opioid user and an alcoholic. And so we had great childhood growing up, and then when he started getting sick, the health impacts were coming in, by the time I was 16, caring for my father. And one, it impacts you because you're now a caregiver, even at a young age, but the seeing your family member go through that, which you don't ever wish for anyone, and then learning so much about things that maybe you wish you didn't even have to know about. But yeah, I feel the same. Our families need more support and resources for how to deal with the disease, but also for their own health and mental health and physical health. I agree. Thank you.
And one thing that I've shared with other parents, with other like parent support groups, where 10 years ago I felt lost. Now I'm able to mentor other parents, like learn boundaries, because these addicts can become very manipulative. They know how to push your buttons. They know how to get more money out of you. They know how to make you feel guilty. They can blame you for ruining their lives. And oftentimes we're the only ones that have been there for them, but we're there for the abuse as well.
The closest to us.
Yeah, you hurt the ones you love.
Yeah.
And so I always suggest and recommend, getting help for yourself.
Yes.
Join a group, join Nar-Anon. Nar-Anon was a big help to me a few years back, and they really taught me how to set boundaries, because you really, you think you're doing the right thing for your children. You want to help them. You want to give them everything they need or ask for. And Nar-Anon really taught me to not enable them. Enabling, disabling, you really have to learn what that means.
Yes.
And until you learn that, you might go down that road with them of where you're enabling them instead of.
Oh gosh, that probably happens so much because we don't have those tools. Thank you for mentioning Nar-Anon and all the support groups that hopefully can capture some of that for families. Gosh, that's so, yes, thank you. And you've learned so much. I could tell. We've talked, a few folks have mentioned the shame and stigma that comes around living with a family member that has this disease of addiction. It sounds like you are so strong in being able to talk about it. I'm sure that wasn't how it was right away. Have you gotten ways to get through that?
I'm glad that you're bringing up stigma, because we all know there's stigma about mental health issues. There's huge stigma about drug abuse.
Yes.
And I do think, a lot of times we think of addictions as generational, where, it's one parent to child. And in my case, really, I would say that just because of my culture, there is a lot of alcohol use, which I'm really recognizing now. But as far as drug abuse, it's something new, even to my family. And I guess I like to share my story because it's so prevalent.
Yes.
And I mean, good families have drug addictions.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it should only be bad families. I'm not saying that at all.
Not.
I'm just saying drug abuse, mental illness is very prevalent, and it can happen to anyone.
To anyone, it doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate. And like I said, I had high hopes of, Miguel's going
He's so smart.
He's going to Harvard. And it was like, boom. He, as smart as he is, I'm very happy that he got his GED in detention. I think that shows how smart he was, but he inherited some mental illness for sure.
Yes. And we don't have all the resources we need to deal with it. So, yeah.
No, but I do think it's getting better. I mean, the fact that this forum is happening, that the city is recognizing this is an issue that impacts all of us. Because when we see people on the street, and it's heartbreaking, that mental illness is a huge component, but the drug abuse is too.
And all of those folks are somebody's son, daughter, yes.
Absolutely.
Loved
Or parent.
one.
Or parent.
Loved one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I just appreciate you're inspirational to me. So thank you so much for sharing. And is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to say or make
I could talk about this all day long.
We're excited.
Just because I'm happy that this is being done, that we have to create awareness. We have to.
We
We
have
have to
to.
talk about drug addiction. We have to talk about mental illness. We have to talk about homelessness.
Yes.
Again, it impacts all of us.
Yes, thank you so much. And that's what this summit's about. And I hope that even by sharing these stories that folks in the watching or in the audience or across our state can rest their shoulders a little bit to say and take themselves out of the silence that might be isolating them from resources. And that we, government and the electeds and folks in the room, can fight for the resources our families need.
Well, and thank you for participating.
Oh, yes.
You've turned a negative into a positive, so thank you for all your strength
Thank
and
you.
support and fighting for the rest of us.
Thank you. We're in this together, and I believe
We
we
are.
could do it. Yes. Thank you.